Let's start off by getting all the people that understood these two poems to raise their hands. Yeah, me neither. Anyway, I want you guys to close your eyes and imagine an astrologically favored rare conjunction of talent and focus. You got it? Well, that's what you get when you think of Ted Hughes and Sylvia Plath. Through the employment of a comparative lens in Sylvia Plath's aerial and Ted Hughes' birthday letters, I felt a sense of unease and confusion while revealing resonances and dissonances between and within these two texts, displaying common and disparate issues and perspective influenced by an array of context as well as the composer's values. Let me introduce you to Plath. She portrays anxieties originating from the Cold War experiences in the poem Ariel. The poetic style adopted navigates readers through a labyrinth of patriarchy and exploration of the female societal role. In Hughes' birthday letters, a postmodern revisionist brand of confession is utilised. His poetic voice is focused on the continuing trauma of which he is the main character. A textual conversation is evident through both writers' confessional style, consisting of the exploration of personal trauma inferred to interdependence as a means for resolution and sympathy. Sylvia Plath's daddy, picture a Nazi face, explores her acceptance of pill addiction and her efforts to release herself from these hindrances. Plath alludes to her father as a Nazi, give him a mustache, and herself through the use of imagery as a foot in his black shoe, uniting chilled dependence with evocative descriptions while it's describing Nazism and the Holocaust atrocity as a metaphor to express her feelings towards her father. This rather odd relationship is a Freudian suggestion of subconscious sexual attachment to her father and increasing hostility towards her mother. This is supported by a strong statement, "You died before I had time." Isn't it amazing how Plath used the confessional style to describe the man she loved as someone who drank my blood for a year? She describes herself as a victim within her marriage, metaphorically classifying Hughes as her murderer. Found. The patriarchal picture of her husband and her father reveals the difficult nature of Plath's relationship with masculinity and patriarchy, developing from the tradition of the Cold War to belittle female perceptions in favour of the dominant patriarchal post-war agenda. I believe that Hughes responds to obvious victimisation through his piece, The Shock. Resonances between texts is portrayed as Plath's problematic father is referred to as the main reason for Plath's suicide, while his dissonance is also evident as he does not accept her self-proclamation as a victim. Alternatively, he portrays her as the antagonist. Hughes reveals her inborn chaotic mentality through the use of a simile. Your daddy had been pointing you at God when his death touched the trigger. You ricochet with the fury of a high-velocity bullet. Hughes states that she killed his soul. For a long time, Vegas missed. I did not even know I had been hit, or that you went clean through me. The powerful imagery of Plath hitting clean through her own husband shows ruthless obsession over her father. The phrase, "I did not even know," displays Hughes' lack of agency, depicting him as the real victim while this Plath is the true tyrant. His key dissonance between texts is evident through Hughes' birthday letters, written after Plath and Hughes' marriage, as Hughes defends himself from accusations that he caused Plath's suicide by denying her idea of being a victim, describing them as self-delusions caused by her own father during her childhood, before Hughes. This context describes how Plath's performance as a victim led Hughes to become a victim himself, subsequently leading to her suicide, which enlightens the readers by representing Plath's fanatical and betrayed identity. The Arrival of the Bee Boss is a poem that expresses Plath's suicidal urges through the motif of bees, sealed in a box, just as her own thoughts are enslaved inside herself. Relating to Plath's psychic powers shown in Hughes' quote, strong enough to make her frequently wish to be rid of them. The intense imagery of enslavement portrays autocracy, which is followed by her odd anaphoric attractions towards them. I wonder if they're hungry. Doesn't that just give you a little tingle? This is a nurturing tone. She wishes to feed her feelings as a mother would a child, which shows the speaker's fear of motherhood and grief over her miscarriage in 1961. She wishes for her child to live a better life than she did. Plath accepts suicide as an embedded feature of her emotions, and the next line metaphorically drops our jaws. Tomorrow I will be sweet God. I will set them free. Just listen to that quote. She predicts the release of her suicidal thoughts and her final set free, but also has a sense of generosity which gave her ultimate control over her life and sickness, which was governing her life and consequently her identity. Through Plath's post-war voice, it is clear that Lady Lazarus reveals a complex form of dysregulated immodesty. The start of the poem creates a dramatic feeling. I've done it again. So I was saying, I've done it again. Suicide as an act of rebellion, whilst Plath praises it to prove her desperate retaliation against patriarchal handcuffs. Plath describes big striptease for the peanut-punching crowd, demonstrating their desire for sexual pleasure, producing a sense of empowerment and justification for her actions in a society which opposes this. Plath's urge to defeat masculinity is accomplished through her violent vengeance as she rises from the ash. Her red hair, symbolic of wilderness, which gives her the power to eat men like air, freeing herself from the role of the domesticated female figure, and successfully asserting a dissonance with not only Hughes, but the whole world. In Hughes's attempt to understand Plath's suffering, despite the fact that he clasped onto his role as a tamed nursemaid, Hughes interrogates the validity of her illness. You cried him so hard over into the red of catastrophe, my apologies. His intuition of Plath's carefully chosen action, burning, describes the dramatic acts of Lady Lazarus, forcing him to quail in disbelief. Stop crying, wolf. Stop crying, wolf. Do you guys understand that? Hughes's calculation of Plath's expressed suffering proves his fight to understand her swaying between aspiration for control and her fear of its consequences. While acknowledging exaggerations in Lady Lazarus, a dissonance can be seen with Ted Hughes's Fever, where he deliberates the cause of their matrimonial difficulties. Which brings me on to the next topic. Differentiating from Plath's loyalty and positivity towards her partner, or shall I say her husband, Ted Hughes' standpoint in Red once again proves a contradictory resonance and dissonance with Plath's self-identity through this time on the subject of a mental illness. She agrees that it was integral to her identity, but views her suicide as a tragedy rather than a victorious escape as she did. Trending to her insecurities was like trying to protect a fox from my own hounds, while the fox beat me. That's a very powerful quote. In Red, the dark colour implies blood. It is used to symbolise suffering, and therefore red was your colour, because she suffered. Endorses Plath's idea that her disease was central to her. This antagonising connotation, accompanied with the imagery of wounds, I felt it raw, like the crisp, gauze edges of a stiffening wound. Criticises the way Plath encompassed her Golgotha, portraying it as causing an irreparable wound in their love story that will never find a way to heal. So what I hope you guys picked up from today's talk is that resonances and dissonances are formed by context and values. In this case, views on patriarchy, Cold War experiences, World War I experiences, and of course, the views of victimization and suicide. Thank you very much for listening. I'm your host, PETAR KONCAR. Good night.